The White House issuing a statement today saying President Trump has no intention of firing Dr. Anthony Fauci, the country's top infectious diseases expert and member of his coronavirus task force. That statement was in response to questions from the media about Fauci's future, which came after President Trump shared a tweet that called for Fauci's firing and spent the weekend calling his friends to discuss the doctor, according to sources. As CNN's Caitlin Collins reports for us now, Fauci's latest offense in the eyes of Trump's most ardent supporters is that in an interview with me on CNN yesterday, he told the truth. He acknowledged that lives may have been saved if the government had been quicker to put social distancing and stay-at-home measures in place.
We did a clinical trial.
The White House is now denying that Dr. Anthony Fauci's job is in danger after President Trump elevated a Twitter post calling for him to be fired. In a statement today, White House spokesman Hogan Gidley called the media chatter ridiculous and said President Trump is not firing Dr. Fauci. But it was the president, not the media, who started the speculation. Yesterday, Trump retweeted this post from a former Republican congressional candidate that ended with these 4 words: "Time to fire Fauci." Hours earlier, the nation's top infectious disease specialist had acknowledged to CNN's Jake Tapper that shutting down the country earlier would have saved lives.
You could logically say that if you had a process that was ongoing and you started mitigation earlier, you could have saved lives. Obviously, no one is going to deny that.
The president has continued to lash out following an extensive report in the New York Times that documented his slow response to the coronavirus. While Trump has publicly praised Fauci, he has privately complained that he often contradicts him, and at times he's refused to let him answer questions. Fauci has faced criticism from some Trump allies for initially being skeptical of the proposed travel restrictions before endorsing them in late January. A New York Times investigation found Trump squandered the time those restrictions bought him to take tougher measures in the U.S.
Banning dangerous foreign travel that threatens the health of our people, and we did that early, far earlier than anyone would have thought.
The New York Times says senior officials urged Trump to impose social distancing measures long before he did, a detail Fauci confirmed on State of the Union.
We look at it from a pure health standpoint. We make a recommendation. Often the recommendation is taken, sometimes it's not. But it is what it is. We are where we are right now.
Trump's pushback on his top public health officials comes as he's weighing when to reopen the country, a decision he wrongly claimed today is up to him, not the nation's governors. He tweeted, "Some in the fake news media are saying that it is the governor's decision to open up the states, not that of the President of the United States and the federal government. Let it be fully understood that this is incorrect." But that's not what the president said when it came to shutting the states down.
I would leave it to the governors. I like that from the standpoint of governing, and I like that from the standpoint of even our Constitution.
Jake, more of the president's allies are also now continuing this afternoon to criticize Dr. Fauci, including Andy Biggs, who is now the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. He said in a radio interview today that he believes Dr. Fauci has emasculated the economy and taken a meat cleaver to it. And he said, quote, "I think it's time for him to move along."
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much. A partisan fight is stopping more money from flowing to small businesses in the United States. Republicans warn that funding for the Paycheck Protection Program, an emergency small business loan program, could run out this week. And the Republican solution is to pass a bill focused solely on providing more money for that program. Senate Democrats argue that any new bill should also include more money for states and for hospitals, for food stamps, and to fund widespread testing for coronavirus. Joining me now is CNN business anchor Julia Chatterley. Julia, let's start with a question. I don't even know if the answer exists. The program, the original Paycheck Protection Program, was about $350 billion. How much of that money's gone out the door to these businessmen and businesswomen who need it so desperately?
It's such a great question. From what I hear, just 1% of all the cash promised is now in the hands of small and medium-sized businesses. I mean, it's a shockingly small sum. From what I'm understanding, if you look at it, and it's the same situation ongoing, it's far more easy to get the money promised by the banks than it is to get approval from the Small Business Administration. That remains the choke point here, and that's going to continue to be an issue. It doesn't negate the need for more cash, however.
Of course, but I'm just talking about if the Republicans are talking about it's going to run out this week and only $3 billion out of $350 billion has been dispersed. It certainly makes me question that claim. What happens if Republicans and Democrats are not able to reach a deal and the small business program hypothetically were to run out of money, whether this week or next? How severe would the consequences be?
You know, this is beyond severe. I spoke to a former chief of the Small Business Administration this week, Karen Mills. She said to me, even in a best case scenario, 20% of small businesses here could fail. We're talking 6 million small businesses. Imagine the job losses we're talking about. This is unimaginable. More cash is required, Jake.
When the program launched, small businesses had to get the emergency money from banks, but as of last weekend, I'm told, they now can get the same emergency loans from other companies, including PayPal and companies like that. That seems like it could make something of a difference.
I think this could be key. These fintech players, as they're called, are far more agile. They tend to lend to far smaller businesses, those with less than 5 employees. So in terms of getting cash to the lifeblood of the economy, this could be a real game changer. That's the good news. The bad news is these guys still have to get approval from the Small Business Administration as well. So again, we've got the same choke point here, getting cash out there. I think we should be talking about a solution that bypasses the Small Business Administration at this stage. I hear those talks are beginning.